Welcome to this week's episode of A Tale of Two Scribes. I'm the host, Eric Bishop. This is a place where interesting people come to share their stories. I hope you'll support tonight's guest. As for myself, I'm a father, author, travel enthusiast, and lover of the outdoors. If you'd like to see some of my creative works, my novels, please go to my website, ericpbishop.com. Thanks for joining us tonight, and enjoy the journey. Welcome to another episode of A Tale of Two Scribes. Tonight, I am pleased to have James Dawson on the program. Hey, James.
Hey Eric.
Nice to have you on.
Oh man, I'm excited to find out why I'm on. Looking at your list of of guests, from Jack Carr to Adair to everybody in between. You have these great authors on, and why you want little old me on? It's
Put, put,
shocking,
put,
but I'm humbled to be here.
put James Dawson on the list. So I had that question actually asked recently. I had someone on that hadn't been published yet, and we talked offline a little bit about it, and I just said, let's make that like the first thing we talk about on the podcast. Um, and basically what I explained to them is, I don't know, I'm sure some people get into the podcast thing and they're like, I just want the bit, I want the Jack Cars, I want the fill in the blank for the big names. Um, and I'm not stupid. It's cool to interview people like that, but that's not my directive to like get the biggest names. And I have found, and it's not saying anyone in particular, but I found sometimes with the bigger name authors, they do a lot of media, obviously, and a lot of times they're not scripted, I don't think in any way, but you hear the same interview. So if you hear one interview with
Hmm.
them, it's the same on 10 different channels. So I don't know. My thought always is I want to bring someone on that I just am interested to talk about. So if I see someone's social media platform and I look at their background or whatever, even if they published or trying to get published, I'm like, hey, that'd be a fun person. Because either way, we're spending an hour together online. So I
Right.
want to make sure like I'm interested in talking to that person, not just like, hey, this publicist reached out to you and want to have Joe Blow on, and I'm looking at Joe Blow's background being like, oh my goodness, is there like scissors I can jab in my eye probably after 5 minutes? It's not going to work. So, based on what I'm seeing about you online, I think we can have a good conversation. So, welcome, welcome. That's why you're on.
Yeah, thanks. I'm definitely excited to be here, and I just recently got like the ring light and the microphone and the headset. I started feeling a vibe a couple months ago. Like maybe I'll start. Someone wanted me on a podcast, and I did one about a month ago. And that was a lot of fun. It was four people on a panel, and that was
Mhm.
exciting. So, and I put everything away because this is an office. A lot goes on in here. Just where I write, but also my wife is in school here, getting her admin credential from
Okay.
USC, so she's in here a lot of the time. So we don't need a big microphone up and the ring light everywhere. So put it
Mhm.
all away. But the Ted's like, oh, I get to get it all back out again and put it up and talk to Eric. So yeah, it's
Mine
exciting.
gets stuck in the corner when I'm not interviewing guests, and for a while I was doing one a week, and sometimes I would do like two or three in a week. So I'd kind of bank like a month or half of a month, and just summers got busy. My writing, self-imposed writing schedule is like fairly aggressive for the next 6 months or a year. So I've kind of just intentionally saying, I think two episodes a month will be good going forward. Just the minute it seems like it's going to be work. And I'm not against work, but I have enough work. So it's like
Yeah,
I
right.
want it to
Yeah.
stay fun. So just bring on a few people a month you want to talk to and find out more about their background, shoot the poo and
Yep.
just have a good time. So
Yeah.
um
Perfect.
I definitely want to talk about what you just released in July, your collection of stories, which I think is pretty cool that you're part of. But before that, and I mentioned this a little bit offline, so I'm not completely throwing you under the bus with this question, but writers have interesting backgrounds. Sometimes they're really exciting backgrounds. Sometimes, like me, they're super boring. Like I've over the years, people have always said you've got to have some connection in the government, Secret Service or this and that because of what you write about. And I'm always like, no, or I'll have to kill you, or yes. I'll come up with some stupid answer half the time. But bottom line is, I'm a financial analyst by day. Spreadsheets,
Right.
numbers. The writing is a way for me of kind of getting away from the monotony of life. Probably I can make up my own reality in a way, but I think you're the first person I've interviewed or talked with or even know in the writing world that actually had at least dabbled in, and you can explain how much, in the world of stand-up comedy. So, how in the world
Yeah.
did that come about, James?
I think just growing up, being a fan of comedy, I was pretty small growing up. I entered high. I have a kind of a bit about that. I entered high school. I was 4 foot 9 inches tall, weighed
Oh,
90
wow.
pounds. I like playing basketball, so I got a perm that helped me fit in with the brothers. And just it's not my defense mechanism was humor because I was so
Hmm.
small, and I had some good friends that kept me protected for sure. But it took me a while to grow. I mean, I'm 6 foot now and 185 pounds, so it all worked out in the
You hit
long
your
run. But
stride.
yeah, when you're 13 years old entering high school and your backpack goes from your shoulders to your ankles, it's not the best time to it's not the best time, and you're just like, oh, why isn't a girl like me? Well, because you're the size of a lunch pail. Like it's just not going to work out for you right now. But so I just liked humor and comedy, and as I kind of got started growing, I got a little more confidence. I was like, oh, I'd love to do stand up sometime. I'd love to do stand up
Hmm.
sometime. And it kind of gets similar to writing. I don't know anybody that does stand up comedy. I didn't know anybody. And when it
Yeah.
down the road, I was in my 20s. I was at Arizona State University. It's where I graduated from after a long line of failed college attempts. I was out there my senior year, and I found this. I was like, I want to do a comedy club. I don't want to do an open mic night. I don't want to be at a coffee shop where people are trying to sip cappuccinos and read, and you're
Hmm.
doing, there's poetry and there's a musician, and then you try to do 3 minutes of comedy. I want to go to a
Right.
comedy club. I want to have that vibe and feel. So I found this comedy club in Scottsdale. They did, you'd sign up a couple months in advance and they'll kind of
Hmm.
figure out where you're at. So I did that, hit up all my friends like, hey, I'm booked. It's Super Bowl Sunday, unfortunately, but I'm going to do a comedy club. And
Yeah.
if you all want to see my first time doing stand up, so, a great group of friends, about 15 dudes rolled out, and we took over Scottsdale for a weekend and took over
That's
this
awesome.
comedy club. And first time, I wrote out my whole act on a sheet of paper, like
Right.
word for word. And I was just like, all right, how's it? No practice. I didn't run it through the mirror. I just
Oh, wow.
this was as raw as it got. But I never had to go to the page. I just kind of
Hmm.
worked at it 6 minutes or so, 7 minutes, whatever it was, and it's just like, all right, there was some decent stuff in there. Nothing.
Hmm.
There was a lot of just. I didn't touch the microphone. I didn't pull it out of the mic stand. I didn't adjust the height of the mic. I just stood there
Just
with the spotlight beaming on me. Um, yeah, just whatever. And it was fine. It was a great weekend with the guys and
yeah.
everything. So it was a lot of fun. And then probably about a year later, I did it again out in Orange County at Improv.
Okay.
It was kind of I took a class. You did 5-week class, and then you do a showcase at the end. I did that, and then it was years later till I did comedy again. I was
Okay.
living up in San Francisco and just kind of spinning my wheels. I'd been there 4 years or so. I was just thinking about moving back down to Southern California, not really sure.
Hmm.
And I was like, I'll go like punch around the comedy scene in San Francisco, and just started going to some open mic nights. And I started going up and just
Hmm.
3 minutes here, 4 minutes here. And it was brutal. And open mic nights, they last 3 hours long. And if you can get up in the first 45 minutes, it's an okay show.
Okay.
But anything after that, the crowd, anybody that's left is either gonna still waiting to go up. Any bar people have likely left. They're tired of seeing people bomb.
Right.
And even if you get a couple of good people in there, it's rough. So then I did that. And then when I moved back down to Southern California, a guy I went to high school with was like, he was working at a local improv. It was just like, I'm starting to do comedy. Like, I heard you were doing some comedy. I was like, yeah, but I haven't done it in a while. I was like, oh, come to a show with me. I think he just needed a ride. And he's just like, come pick me up and take me to my show. It's
That
over
sounds
here.
like a comic right there. Hey,
Yeah,
I got a
100%.
buddy that can get me somewhere. Hey.
Yeah. But he was so gracious with his time. I would take him somewhere, just like, oh, this is my buddy. He's a comic too. And I'm like, I am. And then he just kind of started introducing me to people, and then I started doing a ton of shows with him.
Hmm.
And then for about 2 years, I was doing five shows a week, everywhere
Wow.
from, the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard in LA to every Hell's Angel biker bars to,
Hmm.
wherever the show was, I would do. And I started, I got a pretty good reputation for being able to perform well and write some good comedy and do some good bits. And I could fill 3 minutes, I could do 30 minutes. I was so confident and comfortable with what I could
Wow.
do because I was always pushing myself comic wise as far as like jokes. I didn't want to do the same five
Hmm.
minute set because people are coming to see me, whether it's like, family or friends. They, oh, you're doing a show tonight. I want to come see you. I'm like, oh, they saw me 3 weeks ago. Am I gonna do the same jokes? Like
Right.
that's kind of boring. And so I was always trying to write something new or think of a different story to tell or maybe
Hmm.
rearrange it in a certain way. So I started, I was doing sober living houses. I just anywhere if somebody wanted to do a gig, I would do it, and it was a blast. But once I met my wife and kids were involved, it's really hard to do, the Eagle Rock Bowling Alley on a Thursday night from 10 to midnight. And you're getting paid in a Bud Light and half dozen chicken wings. Yeah, you can't really sustain a family with that. So
Each
you
person
know,
gets a wing and a half, you know. It's
yeah, yeah, and it
enjoy
was
it, kids. I don't know when the next one's coming, so it depends if I
yeah.
if I bomb or not.
I kind of stopped for about 5 years. And then 2020, another friend of mine, I don't have a friend in like a rock band. I have a friend in a boy band. Uh,
There you go.
it's a little different. Trevor from O Town, shout out Trevor in O Town. He lived out in LA, and he when I was at shows in LA, whether it was the Comedy Store or Universal Bar and Grill, he came to all my shows and just
Mm,
supported me a ton. So he was like, and he always talked. I want to do stand up. I want to do stand up. I'm like, you've watched enough stand up. You could do it. You're a hell of an entertainer. You're a showman.
hmm.
You're pretty funny. Like you could do comedy.
Yeah.
So it's in 20 December 2019. He did his first show, so I went out and supported him at the Ice House in Pasadena.
Okay.
He did a great job for his first time, and that kind of got my juices flowing again. It's like like
Mhm.
because I couldn't even watch comedy. Like when I slept away, I couldn't even listen to it or watch it.
Yeah.
It was so like just heartbreaking and just that kind of like I got to turn it off. I got to shut off
Right.
that part. Got to focus on family. Got to focus on the day job and
Hmm.
making a career out of life and taking care of those responsibilities. And no problem. But then once I saw my buddy go up again, I was like, things had kind of settled down
Yeah.
with kids. Everybody was born, everybody was thriving. And, we kind of had a routine, and so I
Hmm.
talked to my wife. I was like, I think I want to stand up again. She's like, okay, like that's I'm like, well, just figure out something. And
Yeah.
and she was always pushing me. You should do it again. I'm like, no, it's not the right time. It's not.
Hmm.
I can't commit to it. I can't. The time and
Yeah.
energy it all takes, and late nights and stuff like that. So I just kind of put out the ether January 2020. I'm like, I'm thinking about getting up again. And my buddy reached out to me that just went up. He's like, I got a show, Melrose, in February, on Melrose Boulevard in LA. You want to do it? I can get you on. I'm like, okay, I guess we're going.
You were going.
And
Yeah.
so I hadn't done comedy in 5 years, and
Wow.
I got there's some old stuff on YouTube you could dig around and find. There's super grainy from some bar shows, but a couple of decent sets in there. And so I
Hmm.
just kind of watched those videos and just like I play the hits. Don't do anything new. Just you remember what jokes worked. You remember just take
Right.
your time. Be honest with the audience when you get up there. Hey, first time in 5 years, we're gonna
Hmm.
run through some hits. I got my notebook if I got to go through it. And like the night before, everybody's in bed. I'm just sitting there like going over everything, and like this new joke popped in my head. Everything I said it was. I'm like, I'm closing with that. I'm
I'm,
closing with the new joke I just wrote.
that's
And so
hilarious.
we go out to Melrose, had a great time, and I was super nervous,
Yeah.
but got back up there and just crushed. Had a 15
Mm.
minute set that just destroyed. And it was a 60 seater room, packed house, great energy, and I just tore the roof off the place, for not going in 5 years. I'm sure it was
Right.
just kind of, probably mediocre stuff for everybody, but I felt so good about it. Like I
Hmm.
got off and I was like, yes, this is the year. I'm back,
I'm
baby.
back.
And then a global pandemic hits and shuts down everything in California for 2 years. And that
So it
was
was
that.
all
But then
because of you, James. It was because of you.
I
You
know,
brought this thing
I know.
upon us.
I know. See, I had too good of a set, and it was like, no, we can't let this loose in the world. We gotta shut it down. So then, but last summer start going up again. A different friend of mine, he was a
Okay.
school teacher down in San Clemente. Like he coaches surfing as an English teacher. I'm like, you just lived the best life ever. And he's
Right.
like, I want to do comedy. I want to do comedy. And he's got 4 kids as well. So I'm like, all right, like let's find something in between. So he
Yeah.
and I started going out a couple of nights. But again, like I'm older now, doing an open mic that's 3 hours long, and you're going up at 11:15 at night, and then you got to drive an hour and a half home.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, this is, and then get up and go to work the next day. I'm like, oh, this is not, So I've done a few here or there, but just kind of
Yeah.
slowed it down. But it's still kind of people, he still wants me to keep going up. Come on, let's go up. Let's go here. I'm like, ugh, so I'm focused on, writing in this space and which I haven't quite been able to do and pull off is translating comedy and stand up to writing in on the page and
Yeah,
getting that to come off the page because I have a certain level of sarcasm or kind of when you're
sure.
talking, you see different, you get the tone of things and the influx of things, but writing it on the page is so different.
Hmm. No, I could understand that. But one thing is the tenacity that takes to pursue it, walk away from it, go back to it, and still have that passion. That should be inspiring to people. No matter where it might go later in life or whatever, is the fact that you keep coming back to it and keep wanting to pursue it. That's something inside you that needs to come out, which I think is a good parallel to when people want to write or think they want to write books. You have so many reasons not to do whatever it is, whether it's comedy or writing or travel's even worse example, probably because you will probably have to spend money. You can write jokes sitting on your couch, just turn off Netflix. You can write a book.
Right.
If you can't afford a laptop, you probably can go to Walmart and buy a ream of paper for whatever they are, 70 cents and a pencil, and you can technically, you could write a story. Good luck with that. And I would hate to have to sit there and handwrite, but I do know a few
Yeah.
authors that write. I know successful authors that handwrite books, actually, which
Yep.
I'm like, you guys are crazy. I couldn't, I wouldn't be able
Agreed.
to reread what I wrote after about 2 pages. It would just turn into a doctor, like just a squiggle.
Yeah.
Like, the heck was that character saying? I don't have a clue what this thing when I read it back. But yeah, it's something you can pursue, especially like the comedy thing. If you have that passion within you, you have the ability to come up with jokes, pursue it. Even if it's just here and there, even if it's not something you commit to every, 5 nights a week or anything.
Yeah, and just kind of that you get that I got that practice of writing, and
Hmm.
I wrote my material. A lot of it's I wasn't like a Jerry Seinfeld or Mitch Hedberg kind of one liner
Yeah.
comedy comedian. I was there's more stories and
Hmm.
dialogue and that kind of stuff, and writing that stuff down. I learned the first like just like writing a story. The first draft of the joke is never what you end up with.
Right.
You write the joke down, and then once I start working it get it out. I'm like, there's some meat there, but it needs a little structure work. It needs a little, a little tag here, a punch there. And then once I step away from the stage and or from doing the show and not even sitting down with the notebook, you just go about your life and just living about
Hmm.
things. And that's still swirling around your head somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's I found that with writing fiction, writing thrillers and stuff. Like it's just you start writing the story, and then as you're driving around, that stuff's swirling around. You go to the gym, it's still swirling around back there. You're on a walk,
Yeah.
you're out to dinner and that stuff still kind of, something will happen. You're like, oh, that would work great over in this spot just because you're
Mhm.
living life. And that's just kind of, that's something I've definitely taken from stand up to this, just some of that writing. Writing isn't always on the page.
Exactly. No, and honestly, I do end up doing a lot of it on my phone. I don't actually write the stories, but what I'll do is in the course of the day, I will think of something. I might be going for a walk or I might be taking a lunch break and be like, this would be an interesting scene for whatever future book. Sometimes it's not for a set book, and I have like one set of notes that is just like random ideas that I'll very rarely look at, but every now and then be like, I need to go through those notes and see what I put out there. Typically, it's for a novel. We were talking offline. I was at a concert last night in Atlanta, and I originally had an idea for a story 4 years ago, and it's kind of come to fruition next summer. My next Body Man release is going to have some of these pieces in it, and there's a section of it that revolves around concerts and security and what happens there. So I kind of did my research a couple years ago out with John Guarnieri and Shinedown, but it's been a few years, and I haven't written the chapter yet. So I have a lot of notes how to do this chapter, but last night I'm like, second night in a row I saw the concert, so I had a little more freedom of just enjoying the music, but also roaming around the arena and stuff, and just like looking like, okay, is there like, if I wanted to do something, how would I get away with it? How would I do this? We
Mhm.
talked offline about it. It's probably people are like seeing me stare at things, and they're probably like, what is this psycho doing? He might have a lanyard, but he looks questionable. But I'm like,
Yeah.
no, really, I'm trying to figure out a plot idea here of how do I do what I need to do in the story when I write it in another month or two. Um, but those ideas end up swirling. So even like on the drive home last night, I was like, What I saw at the concert gave me an idea. So I'm like grabbing my phone, hitting the little voice to text and focus on driving since it's 2 in the morning and I'm just talking to the car basically. It's all through
Yeah.
Bluetooth now, but I don't know if the notes will make sense when I read them here in a couple of weeks. I'm like, what the heck was I even saying? But hopefully it got some of my voice inflection correctly, but
Right.
that stuff always comes out. So whatever. I'm got two current novels that I'm trying to put out next year, and they're in different stages, and those ideas tend to keep flowing on them. So I'll just constantly every day or every couple days think of something, go make a note, and then I'll obviously always go back to my notes when I'm actually sitting down to do the hard work of put it together. But it's invaluable. So I would assume same thing with comedy in the sense of I know I do listen to a lot and watch a lot of comedy specials. But person that everyone go, you always go to the GOAT a lot of times. So for podcasts and major stand-up comics, you got Chappelle and Segura, but Joe Rogan. So I listen to a lot of his podcasts, especially
Mhm.
if the first 10 minutes interest me, I'll listen to the 3 hours. If 10 minutes into
Yeah.
it, I think I started four of them last week. And within a few minutes, I was like, I don't like this guy's voice. Just so I stopped listening. It's just like it
Yeah.
has to hold my attention. But Joe talks about how he's always writing, always working on whatever the next bit's going to be or whatever. And I believe he
Hmm.
does it on his computer. He uses a couple different technologies to do that, but he constantly brings it up when he talks about the process for him for comedy of I'm always writing. And I think that's the key for people, whether they're going to be comedians or they're going to try to their hand in actually writing a novel or a short story or a novella is you're always working on it. Even if you're not physically writing a story all the time, it's always swirling around in your head. And then as we get older, we probably need to put some of that down or we might forget it. That's my excuse, at least. Put it down in some form.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all there. And yeah, Joe Rogan's podcast, like I've really just started listening to him just for the comedians. When I was trying to get back into comedy, like I said,
Yeah.
I wasn't watching it, I wasn't listening to it, I just couldn't do it. But then he's interviewing Anthony Jeselnik. Oh, I liked Anthony Jeselnik when I used to watch
Hmm.
comedy, so I listened to him, and they kind of start talking about the process of comedy, and I
Yeah.
thought I was like, ooh, and it kind of definitely started like making me like, ooh, I do miss that. That part did miss me. You stepped away for so long, but now
Hmm.
it's that. But yeah, for writing here, it's for me, like I said, talking about the excuses, like I have to get up at 5 in the morning to write. I got four
Mm.
kids. I got a job.
Yeah.
It's my oldest is 14. My youngest is 7. We are right in the ballpark of it is just busy calendar time from
Yeah.
the time they go to school to the time we go to bed. So there's no real time, and so I write from 5:30 to 6:30, whatever I can get in before the
Mm.
kids get up and I make breakfast and we all start getting ready for the day. Then out the
Hmm.
door we go, and then depending on
Yeah.
what I'm well, if I set some self goals or whatnot, I'll peel away at lunchtime and do some writing, or a lot of times if I'm at one of our kids' practices, my son's water polo practice is a great time to write because there's 2 hours on a pool deck and no one's
Hmm.
bothering me and I can sit out there and write. And
Hmm.
I got some stink eye from some of the dads. So, oh, we're gonna go play tennis. They invite me all the time. Like, no, sorry, this is my writing time.
Yep.
And this kind of so like, man, Jimmy doesn't ever do anything with us. He just sits there and writes on his laptop. I'm like, yeah, this is it for me. This is my time, and I
Yeah.
gotta take advantage of it and not just be, yeah, it's playing, going smash a tennis ball sounds great, but I got other
Hmm.
things I'm working on and trying to accomplish, and this is what I got to do.
Yeah, no, that's universal. I had a Ryan Pote on earlier this summer. I don't remember what month. Maybe I know I interviewed him before the book came out, so it might have been in June. And I think same thing, full-time job. He gets up early in the morning and he writes. It might even be 2 or 3 hours he does, tries to do
Yeah,
every morning. Um, talked about the water, water sports. Jack Stewart, I haven't talked to Jack in a while, but I know at one point with his kids, I think one of his sons plays water polo or whatever. So
yeah,
he'd be sitting there and sometimes post pictures, or if I was talking to him back then, he'd have the laptop on his lap during practices and just you have to find the time. Me, it's typically later. The ideas come at all times, so I'll make notes a lot of time, but to actually be able to sit down and work on something is mainly after like everyone's in if I got my kids after they're in bed or if I'm by myself for a night after dinners when I'm like, okay, I can focus, I can zone. I normally have to take this thing and lock it up,
yeah,
put it far away. So I'm
yeah,
not like, I gotta look up something. It's like, no, you got a laptop in front of you, dummy. It's got Google.
yeah,
No social media, no nothing. It's got
yeah.
the intranet. You can get on the intranet and do whatever. But um I'm notorious for getting distracted on social media. Like many people are. So,
Yeah, yeah, and that's 100% spot on. There are some nights, yeah, once the kid go to bed and depending on what's going on, if my wife's out with doing some other things, like all
mm,
right, I'll take advantage here of this quiet time and punch away. Like usually, I'll do some editing at night if that's kind of what where I'm at with things. I just got
mm,
developmental edits back on a manuscript I've been working on for a couple of years now, and that's a whole nother ball game.
mm,
Something came perfectly like through the timeline today about like you're going to suck at the beginning and it's going to be frustrating at the beginning, but that's where everybody gets like
yep,
you don't get to the other side without these beginning stages. And this being
right,
my first manuscript at this stage where I just got 9-page summary of the edits and then looking at the Word doc with all the edits on there, I'm like, oh boy, this is a lot. But
yeah,
I know I know I got to get to the other side and
hmm,
it'll be fine. The bones are there and the structure's there and the meat's there. And this novel, it's a crime thriller, and it started. I think the first draft was like 88,000 words, and then
mm,
after the first way through it, got up to like 92,000 words, and then I met David Putnam, who's a crime thriller author, and he's kind of local to me. He just happened to be at the Barnes and Noble by my work. I'll walk across the street to the Barnes and Noble every month or so and walk around just to get some air and just check out what's out there. And he just happened to be sitting at a table, and I started talking to him, and
mm,
he invited me to his writers group that he holds at his house on Thursdays, and that was beginning of the year, and I just kind of kept that in the back, that off to the side, and just kind of kept writing and reading. And I think it was last summer I was like, if I really want to get better at this, I need to ask for some help.
yeah,
And for people that know what they're doing, and
right,
and not just my wife's much smarter than I am, and a teacher and everything like that, but she didn't really understand the business, doesn't know the
hmm,
business of writing and
yeah,
the book publishing world. So she writes it, she's super supportive and just like, oh, this is so good, and I love this, and she's laughing, oh my god, I like this part and that part, and so that's all good, and she's proud of me. That's great, but like, at some point I need help from some people that are out there. So
hmm,
I just emailed him, and I think it was a Wednesday or Thursday, and he was like, yeah, you can come today or come tomorrow. Come to the house. We got a spot for you. You
hmm.
got to bring 5 double spaced pages and you read and we go from there. And I was like, oh, okay. So I drove down to his
Interesting.
house
Okay.
and sat there with 6, 7 people at the time, and you go, everybody sits around, you read your pages, and there's a lot
Hmm,
of critiquing. Everybody's so nice, but they're trying to help you make your stuff better,
hmm,
and it's jarring. I think comedy gave me some thick skin for that because like you're gonna
right,
read your first time. I'm like, sure, why not? And
yeah,
you take your lumps and you move on and
hmm,
take it, and so I went there a few times, and then this last summer, going back, and I kind of started writing a new novel that's 55, 56,000 words into it. So I took some new
uh,
stuff down there, and started reading that, and the art of writing is so subjective because at one point,
right,
one person's like, "Well, I really like the stuff you did with the dog," and that was the best thing they could say about it. And then a couple people later, they're this is beautiful writing and it's great craft, and I wouldn't change a thing. So it's just
yeah,
kind of who you take it from, and
right.
just have to learn from everybody.
Yeah, well, again, that's a great. I was thinking about that recently, interacting with a couple different writers, and the subjective being it's so subjective really is it's something that's good and bad, but it's something that you got to be careful, like whose opinions you trust. Getting opinions is great, but and I've talked about it on the podcast before, when I was going through the querying world and all that years ago, it would be so discouraging because you'd have an agent get back to you, and I just one in particular with the Body Man. Loved the story, loved the concept, man, and you can write, blah blah blah, but your dialogue for your characters isn't always believable. Like, okay, well, that's kind of a big deal if I'm not making my characters speak in an authentic way. So they
Right.
passed on it. The very next agent that responded basically said, "Man, I like the story. Political thrillers are really hard to sell right now." It was towards the end of Trump's first administration. We're having really trouble with anything presidential, like getting any big publishers or any of their editors to take a bite, take a chance at it. But I must compliment you. Your dialogue is spot on. Like these characters are so, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is the same exact manuscript that another big name agent didn't like the dialogue.
Mhm.
And that's kind of when the light bulb went off on me and said, okay, if you get a dozen agents that say your dialogue sucks, your dialogue probably sucks. But if you only get two and one loves the dialogue and one hates the dialogue, maybe
Yeah.
you don't want to always believe the one that hated it because maybe they're wrong. Maybe the other one's wrong. But it's that part of it that's so hard to deal with because, I mean, I've even thought about it in terms of I used to a lot of times pick what I was going to read based on what was hitting the New York Times bestseller list. And this is many years ago. Well, then I'd get books on the New York Times bestseller list and I'd read the first chapter and I'd be like, this thing sucks. Now, I bet you that person's spouse loved it, and I bet you their mother loved
Yeah.
it. The publisher thought they were going to make money, so they loved it.
Hmm.
My opinion on it was a terrible first chapter, and I didn't read it. I used to just read every. If I read it, started a book, I'd finish it. I got rid of that like 15 years ago. If I get through the first couple of pages and I'm like already like, oh, this is terrible, I have no problem just putting the book down and go read the last page. Oh, okay, I got through it. I don't know what happened like
Yeah.
270 pages in the middle, um, but yeah, just the fact that you'd get something that a bunch of people said they loved it, and you read it and you're like, well, I didn't love it. Well, that's because people's opinions are so different. They're so fickle. What one person's going to love, another person doesn't, and you have to be careful when you go down that path. Basically, and I've learned that lesson kind of the hard way.
Yeah. Yeah. Last year, like reading some stuff that, these big name authors and everybody loves them. And I read like I've read some books and I was like, I didn't love it.
Yeah,
I don't get this. I'm not getting this one. I'm not getting the love. I'm like, I'm sure they have a prolific body of work, and I understand that, but this book was not for me. This book wasn't as glorious as everybody told me it was. It was, at
right.
least not for me. So like that's just kind of like, all right, they're subjective, and
Yeah,
that's my opinion. That's my take on it. It wasn't my
sure.
style. And maybe I didn't like that it had longer chapters. I like shorter chapters. Reading Supreme Justice right there. It's short chapters. You're right in my wheelhouse for like what the stories I like to read. That's the stuff I like to write. I like short chapters. It moves the pace and you know. So when I get into a book, I'm like, ooh, 40-page chapter. You are crushing me. I
I
got
know.
this is long, but work through them.
I kind of learned that one years ago because I used to write really big chapters because my model years and years ago was Clancy. So, even though I didn't write the 170,000 word novels, I would still be writing 120,000 word novels. My first one, especially, I think it was 126, something like that before edits. But I'd have big, big, big chapters because that's what Tom Clancy did. So you write big chapters.
Yeah,
And I've got myself pretty well broken of that. I was meeting with Adam Hamdy one time at Thriller Fest, and he was telling me the process of with James Patterson at the time. He's working with James Patterson, still works with James Patterson. And Patterson basically anyone that co-writes or does stuff with books with him, he almost has wouldn't say it's a script, but he has like some certain things that he expects. And he's done so much research and he knows the industry so well now, I think his rule essentially is your chapters need to be less than 1,200 words, which just it's just he for his style and stuff that's going to have his name on it. He wants to make sure people are writing in the same vein of
yeah,
keep the chapter quick. But and then the other thing too, and I don't know if Patterson does this as much, but I know the standard rule is you don't always end in a cliffhanger, but you want to make it so that that person does want to go to the next chapter. So the chapter is short, but they want to go to the next chapter. They don't want to put the book down and go to sleep. They want to finish that book because if they finish that
yeah,
book, we'll go buy another book.
yeah.
So there's a business side of it. That's the side that in 2014, when I was first writing my first novel, I just thought I did something amazing. And then I looked at the business side of publishing, and then I'm like, whoa, hold on now. There's a whole new beast here that I have to learn about. And the more I've learned about 10 years plus in, the more I've learned about that beast, the less I like that beast. So I don't love it more. I despise it more.
I think you do a great job. All the stuff you put out there and how you represent yourself is motivational, inspiring for
Thank
someone
you.
like me out there. Is as you get the query the bejesus out of authors. So whether it's been the first thing I ever wrote was a middle grade novel.
Mhm.
When I wasn't doing comedy, we had young kids. We were watching a ton of Pixar movies, like I think everybody does when you have young kids.
Right.
And I was like, man, they got the same formula. It's the
Yeah.
same formula just about every movie. And so I was thinking about, I was like, I'm going to write. Well, I'm wondering if I can write a story. I'll use the Pixar formula,
Hmm.
and I'll see if I can write a story. And I was like, how long is like a middle grade novel? And look it up online, 30,000 words. That seemed like a doable number. It
Right.
wasn't. If I was looking at 90 or 100,000 words, I'd be like, oh my god, I know where to start. But
Right.
30,000 seemed doable. So I wrote this middle grade novel over a couple of months, and it's 33,000 words. It's magical realism. It's kind of you know, Willy Wonka and the Glass Elevator meets Pixar movie. It's
Hmm.
a family doesn't have their mom, and they go through a magical elevator to find her on the other side to get the closure they need to move on. And there's flying ostrich and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And the family, the dad takes the kids on the ride, and with them, they all got to work together and whatnot. So I wrote that, and I was like, oh, okay, it was nice and fun. I created a bunch and got some decent feedback back, but I'm like, that's still not like what I want to write. That's just
Hmm.
kind of felt like a good jumping off point. And then NaNoWriMo came up. It's coming up in November, National
Hmm.
Novel Writing Month, and 50,000. Like 50,000 words. Okay, that's not that much more than the 33,000 I just wrote. And what's
Right.
that? Oh, young adult. I'm like, okay, I can get a little more serious than that. So I wrote that it was 50,000 words in like 28 days, something like that, 27
Hmm.
days. And we lived in the mountains up in the time, up in Lake Arrowhead. And that commute was early. So I was up at 4 a.m. every day, writing on my lunches,
Oh.
drive home and stop at the library, write more.
Hmm.
And I was fried at
Yeah.
those 28 days. I hit that word mark, and I was just like, I got to step away. I want to sleep in.
Yep.
I want to, I want to catch up on life and I didn't touch it for 3 years.
Hmm.
And because I would sit back down and I'd be like, I feel like I lost the voice. I lost
Yeah.
the characters. I lost what they sounded like and what they talked about. So I just didn't do anything. And our oldest daughter was kind of getting older. She kept getting older, and she kept asking me about it. Weren't you working on a story? What were you doing with that? What were you doing with that? And it's
Hmm.
about a town that was built around the theme of Christmas, and it was
Okay.
Christmas town. There's a Santa's Village up by us in Lake Arrowhead that's year round, but it's kind of so the whole town was evolved around that. But then a cult
Hmm.
moves in and takes over Santa's Village, and it's takes over the high school and that kind of stuff, and definitely kind of mystery stuff. But it's fun to write, and
Hmm.
but again, she kept asking, when are you gonna do it? When are you gonna finish it? And so finally, it took. I think I heard first time I ever heard Jack Carr on probably Rogan's podcast, and I think he was coming out with Savage Son or second or third book, and I never heard of
Hmm.
him. Just listening to him talk about writing and his enthusiasm, his passion for it, I
Yeah.
was just like, oh, this guy sounds interesting. I never read his work, but it kind of got me, somewhere to calm me. Like, all right, I gotta finish this. I gotta finish that. I
Hmm.
started it, finish it.
Yep.
That's get it done. Just get to the end, and then we could figure it out.
Hmm.
And so I'm sure I filibustered for another 10,000 words after that. As I picked it back up, just trying to remember what the characters were sounding like and who they were doing, what they were,
Right.
what they were about, and where they were in the story, and finishing out. And I finally finished it, and it's like the middle grade and the young adult. Most of my kids have read, my two older ones have read both of those. My
Hmm.
younger one has read the middle grade one, or my 9-year-old's read the middle grade one. And so like that's kind of fun. That's fun and nice. And they all talk about it, and they
Hmm.
they all enjoy it. But again, they sit in a 3-ring binder on the shelf and
Right.
whatnot. But then I was still like, all right, that was nice, that was better, but I have other thoughts in my head that aren't clean, aren't for teenagers, aren't for
Right.
a little more adult themes, and
Absolutely.
people might want to die, and there might be blood in places, and there might be some heavier themes, and so
One of
I
those
wrote
people might say something very mean to the other people that you don't want your kids
yes,
to say to the other kids. So yeah, absolutely.
yes, and in this manuscript, I definitely took like the first draft. There was a lot of the language was fierce, and like
Yeah.
it was high volatility, and I parted I parted back because I was like, okay, I was celebrating a little bit,
Right.
I was, I was like, and so I definitely cleaned it up, and I got it down to about 72,000 words because David Putnam was like first novel. 288 pages is the sweet spot for first time authors.
Sure.
That you have to build the trust and of the reader, and that's where you need to be. 288 pages. That's 75,000 words, somewhere around there, give or
Hmm.
take. So I cut it down to 72, sent it off to the developmental editor. She got back to me and said, "You gotta work on the front of the story. Like you kind of for a thriller, you tiptoe in a little too much. You need to start, you
Hmm.
know, you need to bring some action right out of the gates." And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, so I the last few weeks I've been writing. I rewrote the first two chapters, introduced the two kind of characters,
Okay.
and both of them are longer chapters because there's more action. They're 3,500 words, 4,000 words, not that
Hmm.
long, but for
Yeah.
for when I look at my Scribner and I see all my word counts on the side, there's 900 word chapters or 1,600 word chapters, all just kind of in that
Right.
ballpark. And every once in a while, 2,000. I'm like, it's a little heavy, but as I reread, I'm like, it's moving at least. There's not, I don't
Hmm.
have big long paragraphs or anything like that. It's short. It's there's white space on the page. It moves. So yeah, so it's just getting through that. Now it's sitting at like 80,000 words. I'm like, all right, now as I work through the developmental edits, I'm sure I'll cut some of that back to get it closer to 75, I think, for that first part. And then we'll
Hmm.
figure it out from there, which I'll probably end up self-publishing it and taking it from there.
Yeah. Well, I've got one third in the Omega Group book that I'm planning on coming out early next year. I'm currently doing the edits, and I'm breaking my rule because typically, like, yeah, I don't say 1,200's the Bible for each chapter, but I try to make them shorter. But the start of that book takes place years before the actual rest of the story. And a lot of stuff happening. It's happening out down in Philadelphia near the Liberty Bell, and lots of action, lots of crazy stuff's happening. It's big. And I was going to break it into two chapters. I'm like, yeah, but this is kind of like, this is a prologue. I can't have this two chapters.
Yeah,
It's got to be this one. So I'm trying to trim it down, but I'm like, oh man, I can't get rid of that because I need that to happen for this to happen. So I'll end up breaking my rule with this one and have a bigger intro, but I think I've built up enough audience with 5 books out that okay, they'll either accept it for book 6 that it starts a little longer, but then it falls into the pattern of smaller chapters. But I need to get that intro out. And the cool thing about this is there's a lot of parameters that we're always given, but we do at the end of the day, especially if we don't go with a traditional publisher, we do kind of get to set our own guidelines of what we're going to do. And the audience will be the
yeah,
ultimate judge. And that's
right.
that's always been what I'm concerned with. What's the audience think about it? I don't, man, to go through the publishing world, which I've done already, it's so hard. And there's the indie world is really hard too. Tell people that. It's not like, hey, just publish a book because no, if you're going to put something out there, you're going to put a lot more effort into it probably than you'll ever do if you got to deal with Simon and Schuster or anything like
Right.
that. If you do it right, you're going to put a lot of work into that, or you're going to hire out lots of people. And I do a combination of hiring people and also doing some stuff myself. But that's your reputation that's coming out. So you have play with that where you can do things your way, but at the same time, you got to make sure that product you put out is the best you possibly can because that's if that's your first book or if that's your fifth book, that's what people are going to have for you, and they're going to
Yep.
judge you by that. Even if you don't really care what they think, you'll care if they don't buy the next book and you dump a bunch of money into something that you never recoup back. So it's that whole
Yeah.
business side of it that you have to do if you take this seriously, but it's probably the least fun part of the entire process.
What was the decision like for you to do it under like your own, to have your own imprint as opposed to just putting it out under your name? What was that? Was that like, oh, this is more like a strategic business decision?
Yeah,
Financially make more sense?
keep it separate. I wanted to keep it separate from my 9 to 5 job, everything. I wanted basically everything to just be its own. And it sounds weird to say it to give you more of an air of legitimacy, but I think there's still a stigma where if someone goes to Amazon and it says self-published or it says, Eric Bishop publisher, they go, "Oh, he's just
Yeah.
writing his own books." And I am, and I don't mince words that Bruno Media Publishing, I say it in everything with Bruno Media that it's my publishing house. But yeah, just kind of I think there's certain people that will be scared off, even they think it's self-published because they've read junk that someone put on Amazon that should have never been
Yeah.
self-published, and it kind of gives it a bad stigma. So, and then also the legal side of it is I want to just have it all protected of like have an LLC, have it set up. That way, I mean, I don't put anything in there that I'm not going to get sued for anything. I don't believe. I mean, I'm careful. I don't put song lyrics. I don't put this. I don't put that. And
Yeah.
yeah, I make the president maybe be a bad guy sometimes, but I don't say Joe Biden is this or Donald Trump is this, I give them more clever names.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I, I use these useful idiots for purposes of stories. But they can't really sue me because I don't use their real names. I just use their personalities at times. So yeah, I think I'm protected on that, Ren. But yeah, just kind of just keep it separate. Mainly, it's a business. I have a business account, business credit card. Everything just runs through the business, and then it doesn't intermingle with just 9 to 5, regular life stuff.
yeah. Yeah, my wife and I have been talking about that kind of a lot, just as more of this is kind of ramped up, and heading to BoucherCon next week, and
Yeah.
doing these, whether it's you know buying freaking bookmarks or stickers, or buying author copies of books and things like that. Just all of it's kind of
Poker
yeah,
chips was
yeah,
my
poker
one this
chips.
year, which I
Yep.
I know you got one of
I
them.
I
So
got one back here, and yes, and so that kind of stuff, trying to figure out that
yeah,
the business side of the house
yeah,
obviously different from the creative side, and just trying to figure out that financially. And you're talking about the legitimacy of the imprint. I've been thinking about this kind of a lot recently, and I don't writing to me, it feels like it's the only art form where independent is like the bad word. If you're a
right,
musician or a comic or a filmmaker or an artist, independence kind of the cool hip thing. Like when Green Day signed their big deal with the record label, everybody freaked out because they weren't indie anymore. But
right,
now, but for writing, it's kind of like, oh, you're an indie author. Like, oh, okay, now you're somehow not as well. You're not as good of an author, or whatever it
correct.
is. It's just kind of, my God, definitely not true. I know so
No,
many of the last couple year or so that I've been more out there in the writing community. I've
yeah.
met so many talented writers that are just doing their own thing, and
Mhm.
it's encouraging and awesome to see.
Well, I think people to some degree have been programmed. And again, this isn't a bash at traditional publishing. I probably even pursue it at some point again
Yeah.
in the coming years. But I think there's been a stigma, and I think it's been pushed by traditional publishing to say, hey, we're the gatekeepers. If they
Hmm.
come through us, then they're legitimate authors. And there's some of that could be said is true because there's so many books put on Amazon, KDP that should never be published. And I'm proud of every single one of those person that takes the time, creates something. Doesn't mean it should probably be online and trying to charge money for it. I guess if you're giving away for free, cool. But man, if you're
Yeah.
charging someone for a book, you better make sure you got a good cover. You better make sure you got it edited professionally, not just like your mom read through it and she taught English, 25 years.
Right.
That's all you can afford. I get that. I do respect that. But so that's where the publishing house does have a leg up. But on the other side, like what we were talking about before, the publishers, and I know some really good publishers, great people, but they're a business. They're in it to make money. So if they even read that book and think, man, this is on fire, this subject matter, this person's background or their affiliations are going to help sell books, that book could be total you know what, and they'll sell the
Yep.
heck out of it because they're going to make money off it. So that's not the requirement for if it's legitimate literature or good writing. You can't put it into their hands. It's the audience that's going to do that ultimately. The audience is going to read it and be like, oh, and yeah, there's a lot of big name authors out there that I don't think are the most talented authors. There's plenty of, I get self-published books on a regular basis from people say, hey, take a look at this or read a few pages. And I'm like, this person knows. And again, so subjective, but I'll read it and be like, yeah, this person knows what they're talking about. This is a good story. They can't get an agent to even respond to them, or they can't even
Yeah.
get their foot in the door. And that to me is like, and a lot of times people ask questions, should I self-publish? I'm like, I was against it for years because I knew how much work it would be. And I knew the financial, I have it down to a science now where I know how much it will cost me to publish a book. And I know how many books I'm going to have to sell just to recoup that to then get profitable.
Yeah.
And that's the side of the business you have to understand. And, unless you're just cash flush and you can say, hey, I can throw this amount of money at this. It's a vanity project. If I sell 2 copies, I don't care. That's not what the average person's looking at. Even if they're not
Right.
trying to make a bunch of money, they're probably sacrificing somehow to self-publish a book, to buy to get a professional editor, to get a professional cover design. Those aren't cheap. There's
No.
cheaper options, but they're not cheap. And if you design it yourself, unless you have a graphics artist background, most people are going to be able to tell that, oh, Canva. Hey, I mean, I've done some mock-ups in Canva for my for
Yeah.
my guy that does all my covers. And the mock-ups I give him, I'm always kind of like when I send it, I'm like, He probably thinks I'm mentally challenged when he looks at these things. Like, what's this guy doing? He
Yeah,
cannot design anything. It's like, no, I'm supposed to tell stories, not design the covers. That's not my
that's
thing.
right.
So
Yeah.
stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. So
Yeah, that's right, man. That yeah, we paid for I paid for the professional editor, and it was not cheap, and that certainly it's more skin in the game, and to come through on the other side, and it's a process, and
it is.
I'm not the fastest at it. Like full-time job, 4 kids, life is busy. I
Yeah.
work. I go at the pace I can right now, and
Right.
sometimes I try not to get down on myself too much. I'm like, oh, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not where I
Mhm.
want to be. I'm not where I want to be. But I've made some good strides just
Mhm.
being a very minimal published writer in this space of meeting people, meeting you, meeting
Mhm.
it's Jeff Circle or Steve Stratton or John Adams and Marcy McCreary, all these people that I've met over the last year or so have been so nice and reached out to me and
Mhm.
could talk to me over the phone about what their process is like and what they've been going through. And have you tried this resource or that resource? And so it's just the
Mhm.
writing community has been incredible and helpful. And I've been oh, don't be afraid to ask somebody for some help. Or, oh,
Right.
what'd you make that on? Whether it's T.R. Hendricks. Oh, what'd you do with this? Message me back. Oh, try this one, try that one.
Yeah.
Just there's so many good people out there. We're looking to help.
Well, and it's something I put in the back of the books. It's on my website, something I tell my kids. And every time I say all this stuff, I'm preaching to myself to remind myself it's about the journey. It's not about the destination. So I think so often, especially I'm middle aged now. So, so many things in life, I'm like, oh, once I get to this part, once I get published, once I get this milestone, I'm gonna just feel this great sense of relief. Yeah, it feels great. But, we were talking offline. I was at, two Shinedown concerts back to back. I was looking forward to seeing them this year because I was like, man, they got a new tour and I hadn't been able to go. Well, that's all past me now. I've
Yeah,
been back for the Atlanta show is started almost a day ago now. So as we're filming this, so it's so easy in life, whether it's to publish your book or whatever, to kind of get like so caught up in what's it going to be like to get to that moment. You fail to live during that journey of getting to that moment, and
yeah,
that's where all life really takes place is in that journey. It's not the destination part. And destination might be really great, but even if it's great, like I take it back to my own example of I tried for basically 7 years to get published. It took
yeah,
7 years from writing my first manuscript until I held a copy of my book in my hands. And not exaggeration, not platitudes. Every time I held that book for the first month or so, I teared up. First couple times I cried. I was like,
yeah.
I worked so damn hard. And this is behind me. That cover, it's an old cover, so I don't advertise
Yeah.
that one as much, but it's back there on the shelf. I'm proud of it.
Heck
It's in
yeah.
the back of the shelf. I'm really proud of it, obviously. But no, I would hold that thing and I'd be so proud. And then, after a couple weeks of, I didn't hold it all day, but I pick it up every now and then and hold it, be like, that's my baby, man. I worked hard for this thing. Yeah, after a few weeks, after a month, you pick it up and you're like, cool, I did this thing. How do I get that feeling back? Well, I need to write something else. Oh, okay, let me get to the next novel. Then you publish a second book. Felt really good. It didn't fill that void that I thought was there. And that's kind of
Yeah,
what gave me that realization and I hope some wisdom to it. It's like you're always chasing for this feeling that when you get it, it's going to be over pretty quick. So why don't you enjoy the process of getting to that goal, whatever it is? And then once you achieve that goal, cool, enjoy yourself, be proud of yourself. What's the next thing to work towards, and how do you enjoy that process to get to that next goal? Um, so that's
yeah.
my take on it, at least.
No, and that's kind of how this whole writing thing is gone for me. Similar to stand-up comedy, I didn't know anybody that wrote anything or
Mhm.
had anybody in the industry or had any connections. I just liked writing, and as I was taking it more seriously, I was like, I should probably try to figure out going to something or trying to figure meet more people in the
Right.
industry, that networking thing. And BoucherCon was in San Diego a couple years back, and that's
Mhm.
2 hours from my house, not that far. So but I woke up on Saturday morning at 5 a.m., drove down there just for the day and spent the day at BoucherCon. And I didn't meet many people there that day. I
Okay.
just kind of floated around, listened to people and listened to the sessions. And one thing I was like, nobody's like so smart that they're just crushing me with their intelligence.
Right.
They're still they're normal people. They just stuck with it.
Yep.
They wrote, and yeah, some definitely they talked about. Oh, I got lucky. I caught the right spot, at the right time, and it worked out that way. But then they say, Yep, and that was book one. And then now I'm on book two, three, four, still trying to catch that same lightning in a
Yeah.
bottle for that first one. And it was very real and humbling and just kind of like, okay, like I could do this. I just got to
Mhm.
stick with it and keep writing it. And I've heard you say this before, and it's something I've said many, many times. Like you have to write. You like I have, there's On Writing over here, there's The War of Art over here, there's
Yep, got them
you
all
know,
done there.
there's Save the Cat over there. There's, this book and that book, and you can get bogged down and just try. Oh, I got to learn this. I got to learn this. You're not going to learn it all from reading these books, and
Nope.
they're important, and they're a great resource guide and a reference if you're kind of stuck or just kind of want to get something fresh, ideas of how to kind of put it all together. But until you sit down in front of that page and put it down there and start writing and read some of the other authors that are out there that you like and kind of see what they're doing and how they're making things work, and then put some stuff out there like see how it goes. And yeah, I got a short story on my website right now called "Death by Stand Up" about a serial killer stand up comic loose in New Orleans.
Two,
So
two parts right. I was looking at it. You got two
yeah,
parts up there.
yeah.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
it.
little two parter, just something, just that was fun to write,
Yeah.
and but the short stories I write, it's a nice break from the writing the big manuscripts because I've always tried to do something new, whether it's point of view difference or make it a little grittier or darker or just kind of up the violence a little bit. Like in Western Tales Volume One, I got a short story in here, and I wrote it over 3 days at my son's water polo practice, and
Hmm.
each day just got more and more violent. And it is one of the most violent things I've ever written. And but it was so much fun to write at the same time. And it just kind of got a little Tarantino-esque at the end. And I'm
There
just
you
like,
go.
man, that was a good time. But it was like it was a fun write, and it
Yeah.
came out well, and just kind of but it was something new. I challenged myself to write something different, and that ended up getting picked up for publication for the
Hmm.
short story anthology. So it's just kind of you never know what just trying something different, and that's something I wasn't going to learn by reading another how to book on
Exactly.
writing.
Well, before we talk about Western Tales, let me tell you something real quick on mine. What ended up becoming Babylon Will Rise, one of the ones behind me over my shoulder, years ago when I was first starting to write back in 2014, and I got a website maybe in 2015 or 16, I can't remember. I wrote what part of that book is and put it out on my website as like blog entries. And I did a 10-part story blog, basically,
Mhm.
which probably should have never been put on a blog or done like that. But I got thousands of reads on it over the course of a year.
Nice.
And I got a lot of positive feedback, like, oh, these are some cool characters. Oh, I like this Troy Evans character or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So years later, as I'm kind of starting my own indie press and looking at stuff I wrote before, and I know how to do it much better now, still not there, but getting there. I was like, man, I got all this stuff I've written that's now sitting in a Word document that's not even online anymore. Maybe there's something in there I can use. So I took that original short story, it was a long novella. It was probably like 50,000 words. It was close to a full book, but it was called Project Nebuchadnezzar. Terrible name on a book title. So as I'm looking at it going, the heck am I going to call this thing? So I started going through it, started reading it, starting editing it. And then there was a line in the book where it's a key thing that happens where they need some intel, and the person they're interrogating, the only clue they can give them is Babylon will rise. And I'm like, that could be a book title. Maybe it's not the best
Yeah.
book title, but it's a heck of a lot better than Project Nebuchadnezzar. I still can't spell Nebuchadnezzar to this day. I think I probably spelled it 6 ways in the story. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but all that to say, you don't know what you're going to write and what nugget's going to come out of it that might turn into something down the line or will give you a motivation to do
Yeah.
something. So talk about how Western Tales Volume 1 came about, and then, where's James going after that? So,
Yeah, so yeah, Western Tales Volume One came out in July, so there's the paperback right there. It's an
mhm.
anthology. It's written. There's 15 stories written by 16 authors. So one of them's written by two authors.
Cool.
Put out by Veritas Entertainment. These guys do a lot of men's adventure fiction,
Mhm.
pulp style, noirs, stuff. Louis L'Amour style writing. That
Yeah,
kind of the short. Um, Fighting hard a man kind of themes with all
right.
their stuff, and then they've been picking up several authors here or there to kind of put out some of their stories. There's Terrence Lehue with his
Yeah.
kind of
Terrence is a
Mitch
great
Mayhew
guy.
character. Yeah, I've interacted with him a little bit online. I haven't met him or anything, but he's very very enthusiastic and nice and supportive, which is always
Mhm.
appreciated. So like, I think his wife actually has a story in here as well. Faith, I think hers.
I
So
didn't know Faith did. Okay. He's talked about his wife.
yeah,
We've talked offline and stuff. So nice.
Yeah, so she's got a story in here. And yeah, there's two or three female authors in here with the Western tales. So there's everything from neo westerns to like I said, mine's gritty. It's a Ezekiel Ransom riding hard on a horse. His bandits are pursuing him. He finds solace in a calico mining town, and the showdown ensues in a saloon. And
Love it.
it's called The Tongue Collector. And they said it is the most violent thing I've written. Certainly not the most violent thing out there, but it's certainly it took off in the last third, and it just kind of it was a fun write, and it certainly enjoyed it. So it felt good to have something published for sure. Just kind of that somebody recognized the work, and it's gotten some good reviews on Amazon. I haven't checked recently, but there were 18 or 19 5-star reviews last I checked
Mhm.
for this publication. So it was that's cool to see, and get some nice coverage for that. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so that's kind of the
Well,
story of
just to
Western
get your
Tales.
name out there and to start some way. So I think people, unfortunately, like just, you've got books obviously behind you there. And the one that's always the one that everyone points to is Jack Carr, which, some great reasons to point to Jack Carr, but don't let that be like, man, I need to be the next Jack Carr. And
Yeah.
I say it to myself. It's not me preaching to anyone. Be the best version of yourself. If you can achieve that level, if you can get the movie deal, if Chris Pratt can become your buddy and you get all the logos and merch and all that, God bless you. But if that's what you are striving to get into this or hoping that that's what I have to achieve, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be let down.
Yeah.
There's that one in a million that gets it. It won't be you. Now, could it be you? Sure. Will it be you?
Right.
Oh, so get that out of your head. Just be the best version of yourself, and maybe you'll be bigger. Maybe Jack Carr will be talking about, James Dawson one day. You don't know. And that's the thing about this, that there's an element of anything with writing that's out of your hands. What you can do
Yep.
is tell the best damn story possible. If you can do that, magic can happen. But if you don't do that for that crucial step, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, and have some fun doing it. We don't got to take
Absolutely.
ourselves so seriously, and we're all I try to be really supportive online of all the other authors out there and the
Mhm.
writers, especially the ones that I've met and they've taken the time to talk to me and help me out in any way they could. I try to support them as much as possible and share their stuff just because who doesn't need who wouldn't love a little extra help? Like Jack Carr, as nice of a guy as he is, I've spent some time talking with him in person, which is nice. He's a very nice guy for, 10-15 minutes, and all accounts, still a great guy on everywhere else. And but his books sell just fine. He,
Yeah.
he doesn't need the added. Brad Thor somewhere up there too.
Yeah.
He's selling books just fine. And but Steve Stratton, me, anybody else out there that what's Claire Eisenthal or Am Adair, these people. Why not
Mhm.
share their stuff? Because we could all use a little extra bump on book sales.
Well, even Jack had told me years. I met Jack 2017, 18, 2018 at Thriller Fest. Maybe 17. Doesn't matter. Whenever the term list came out, whatever year, I think it was 18. But I was asking him advice, and he was not Jack Carr that we know now. He hadn't hit the bestseller
Yeah,
list. There was not many people knew who he was. He was just starting to get a name for himself, but his advice was pretty simple. Most of it was like, be authentic, be yourself. Start a grassroots campaign, though. Get people on board. And
yeah,
that's the hard thing for authors to kind of grasp sometimes is they think, okay, well, if I get a deal with Penguin or Simon and Schuster, if they haven't studied the business side of it, they go, well, the publisher will take care of things. No, if you're no name and you haven't already earned them money, they're not throwing the kitchen sink at you. Doesn't mean they're not going to market you or anything, but you're not getting the Jack Carr, the Brad Thor, the Stephen King treatment, which is amazing
right,
because like those big names, you'd think, okay, they sell books. They don't really need to advertise for them. No, quite contraire. The publishing industry throws a crap load of money at marketing all those big names, even though they're already known by hundreds of thousands, or in some cases probably millions of readers. They're trying to grow that bigger, and they grow that as big as they possibly can because the profits from those handful of authors are what support all the others.
yeah.
I've talked about it in the podcast before, and it's a legit number. And it's freaky scary that it's this bad, but less than it's like it's 1.8% of authors earn $100,000 or more. You live in California. you're not going to live on in that state if you make $20,000 a year. I mean, I live in North Carolina. You're not going to live on that little amount of money. So to
Right.
actually have enough money to have, a cost of living, even though you can do it in places in the country under 100,000, 100,000 is not wealthy in majority of big cities or even smaller cities anymore. That's what you have to do to have a food on your plate and a mortgage and everything else. So, man,
Yeah.
you got to be careful what you're looking at as your goal, and then also have a reality set in of going, okay, how can I get to my goal? Yes, but also don't necessarily think that you're going to come out with a book and the dump truck might not pull in the driveway and start unloading the cash for you quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned Ryan Pote earlier. His book came out, like last month or not that long ago. To me, because I follow him online and I've seen him on some interviews and some podcasts. Like I figured his book was going to be everywhere, and I walked into my local Barnes and Noble, when his book came out, and it wasn't there.
It
And
wasn't
I'm
there,
like,
yeah.
wow. So got to request it and try to get it. Just try to support him because I haven't met him, but is I've enjoyed his interviews that I've heard
Mhm.
his podcast. He seems like he's doing the right things and so yeah, let's try to support this guy. I've heard his book sounds
Mhm.
pretty great and show up to Barnes and Noble, nothing, nowhere there, and just like wow, okay,
Yeah,
it's not like even these people that you feel like are getting big releases and big pushes, they're
right.
hard to come by.
Well, and even that, the most people don't, I think, or enough people don't understand that, when they go into Barnes and Noble and they see these nice displays that are new releases and all that, they go, "Oh, my book can be there." It's like the publisher is paying for that space, probably
Yeah,
paying more than that book is probably going to generate with, and it has to sell a bunch of copies to pay for that space, basically. So it's all marketing. So I've had that asked of me. It's like, why aren't you in bigger bookstores? It's like when I reached out when the Body Man came out with us through a smaller publisher, there was some local places that were interested, but most of it was consignment or there was financial restraints that would then be thrown on me. And I'm like, I don't know that I want to risk that's people holding 10 books for the next year and me have to be out money while they're trying to sell them. Or if they don't
yeah,
sell, I have to go buy them back from them. It just wasn't important enough for me. It's like I'd rather put up a
yeah,
website and hey, if you want to buy my book, here it is, or it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes& and Noble online, but the physical spaces. Now, I have some goals and like one, I've traveled a decent amount. I want to be going through, I want to pull the Jack car one day and or Brad Meltzer and be going through an airport, see my book and start signing copies.
yeah,
But
yeah.
Hudson's pissed at me that I'm like, flipping it around and they're like, no, that's really me. And they're like, no, you're really ugly, but that's not you. I'm like, no, 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 that was airbrushed. That picture's really me, I tell you. That's never going to happen unless I get a big publishing deal and I get a good publishing deal. So that kind of keeps me motivated, but that's a motivation. That's not a success. If I get to that level, I can't be like, I don't got anything else to achieve. I hit that one. No, it'll be like when my first book came out. It'll be cool, but then it'll be kind of empty and you're like, okay, I
Yeah.
need something else. So that's again the destination is not where it's at, but I hope my books do find a destination at major airports at one point. So
Your package for Supreme Court Justice with the poker chip and the card and everything, you put that out there right at the right time because I had it in my cart on Amazon, and I was like, oh, I want to buy this before I jump on the podcast so I can read a little bit and just kind of,
yeah,
have, make sure that I'm not, just, oh, thanks for having me. I'm not giving anything back, but,
I appreciate that.
um, and I was gonna buy it, and then you put it out there, and I was like, oh, let's see what this is. And like $20. I'm like, yeah, why not? I guess 17.99 on Amazon for $2 more. I get all this cool
You get
stuff,
some
and
more
let's do
stuff,
it
yeah.
that. Yeah, that's why not do
And,
that and support you that way. That's cool.
and I make the same whether I sell them on my website or Amazon. And the Amazon ones, it ends up costing people at $2 more, but they get some goodies. The one thing that's kind of gone up, and man, I've noticed it last couple of years, is mailing stuff.
Oh
Media
yeah,
rate's still not horrible, but if I ever send anything not media rate, like the poker chips, I've had some people buy the poker chips, and my first thought on it was, how much is it to send a couple poker chips? These things hardly weigh anything. It costs more than it does to buy the two poker chips.
really?
Oh yeah, I was pissed when I went
Oh,
to the post office and says, "Hey, mail this cheapest way possible," and they told me what it was, and I'm like, I didn't ask for like dinner too. I just wanted to just like
right.
postage. Like, what are you people doing?
Wow.
Like, I have a love-hate relationship with the post office. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's the cost. It's the cost factors that people don't. that you got to do your homework too on stuff. So I learned quickly of, okay, I'm going to have to charge a little more for the poker chips than I probably will be worth selling at that point. But that's why I try to tell people, hey, if you get a book for the media rate stuff, it doesn't cost any more to throw in a poker chip or two or whatever they're buying if they're getting two books. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that makes it a little bit easier. So I gave a few out at the concerts this weekend. I was like, I've got however many left, 50 in my box. I'm like, hey, I'll put up some in my pocket. Like, hey, how are you? Here's a poker chip. So I had this funny, so I had this shirt on, Greenville show? Yeah, the first show. It was a shirt I got about basically a bassist, and I got it years ago for Eric Bass, who's the bassist for Shinedown. He signed it and everything, and I'd wear it every so often. And this woman gets my attention. I'm side stage before the show started last Saturday night, and she got my attention. She goes, "I love your shirt. Can I get a picture of you in your shirt?" And I'm like, okay, sure. This is kind of weird. So I move my lanyard out of the way. I get a picture, and she's like, "Oh, it's so great." Da da da. And I was like, "Well, I'm a famous author." She goes, "Really?" So, yeah. This is the other thing. Marketing 101, people keep business cards on you. I flip out that business card, and I'm like, "You need to pick. I got 5 books out. You should get one. I'm famous." And she's like, "This is cool. I met a famous author."
Heck
I'm not a
yeah.
famous author. You know what? She'll see me on Amazon and think I am. I maybe sold a couple books.
Heck yeah. Absolutely.
You never
Absolutely.
know. You never know. But no, I figured she owed me that at least because she took my picture, which isn't like Native American. Someone used to believe that took a little piece of your soul. They didn't want your picture taken. I can't remember who it was back in the day, but at some point,
No,
pictures
yeah.
were very much like taboo to take your picture. So least she could do
Yeah,
is buy
that's
my
like the
book.
that's the stats. I don't know which famous author said it, but like being a famous author, it's like you're famous enough to get the table at the restaurant, but not famous enough to where everybody will just leave you alone while you eat. And I'm just like, that's a good place to be.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Well, and the fortunate thing with authors is it's kind of rare for authors to get super famous.
Yeah.
The George R. R. Martins and Stephen King, kind of the unusual or unique looking people are going to get probably discovered if they go out in public. But like, I mean, like even someone like I'll just throw out the name Brad Thor, and maybe Brad Thor gets recognized all the time. I have a feeling he could go in a lot of places. He'd probably walk by me in a store, and I'd probably be like, looks familiar. That guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think I would be like versus like George Clooney's walking down he won't be in Walmart, but walking in Walmart here
No.
in Forest City where I live one night, and I look down the aisle and George Clooney's coming to me. I wouldn't be like, man, that guy looks exactly like George Clooney. I'd be like, holy crap, what's George Clooney doing in North Carolina? Of course, then I'd be like, George, I got a book you need to turn into something.
Yeah.
Get me out of here. I need you to get
Uh,
me out of Forest City, North Carolina. No.
That's
But
why my oldest daughter has a picture with Charles Barkley outside of a Goodwill in Atlanta. They're out there, and they had to get something real quick. And he was donating stuff to the Goodwill. My daughter and my mother-in-law were coming out, and they're like, Charles Barkley.
Charles Barkley.
Well, his daughter's got a picture with Charles Barkley standing in front of a Goodwill in Atlanta. And it's like, yeah, there you go. So maybe George Clooney would be at a Walmart. You never know.
So like 2 years ago, I want to talk about what you're doing next, and then we'll won't keep you for any longer. I was up with my family in Newport, Rhode Island, and we were in a Stop and Shop grocery store, and I'm kind of looking down the aisle at someone coming at me, and I'm like, "That's Jay Leno." And so I kind of stalked him for an aisle, like because Jay
Yeah.
Leno's got that face of like, there's not like an imposter.
Uh,
That's Jay Leno.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I come
Yeah.
around the
Denim on
corner.
denim.
What's that?
The denim on denim
Yes.
in
Oh,
the
100%.
face.
Just yeah.
Yeah.
So I come around the corner and there's a store manager. And I look at the store manager and the store manager looks at me and I'm like, that's Jay Leno. He goes, yeah, he's got a house down the road. He's here all the time. And I'm like, "Oh, I love Jay Leno." He goes, go say hi to him. I was like, no, he'd be so pissed. He goes, no, he's okay with that. He's not mad when people do that. Go do it. So I go up, introduce myself, talk to him for a minute. My son's there, introduce my son, and I'm like, I should get a picture, ask for a picture. I'm like, I can't. So I'm walking, we're getting ready to leave at that point, go by the manager again. And he goes, did you talk to him? I was like, yeah, he was so nice. I should have got a picture though, but I don't want to be that guy. He goes, he'll take the picture. Don't, it won't ruin his thing. So he does look not super happy in the picture, but so him, his wife Mavis, and they got this whole cart of groceries, and we're all like
Oh
standing.
my
Mom's
God.
there, and my kids, so we're all standing. It was my Christmas card a couple of years ago. I put it on
Ah!
on the ground. It's like you're with Jay
That's
Leno,
a good
man. I mean,
move.
like
Yeah.
I literally, my wife at the time told me we were pregnant with my son when I was watching the Tonight Show on the couch. Hey, by the way, I'm pregnant. And like Jay Leno was like, hey, yeah, 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 yeah. And I'm like, oh, hey, Jay. I told him that that story actually when I met him. I found out I was pregnant with him, or we were pregnant with him. Listen to you, and he's probably like, psycho. But
Oh my gosh, that's
no, so it's a
great.
hilarious thing. So we get the picture, of course, get the picture, and we're looking at it later, and my kids are like zooming in and like analyzing it. They're like, Jay's got Pepto-Bismol, and he's got Coca-Colas, and he's got this, and he's got that. I'm like, poor Jay Leno. He's just in grocery shopping, and now we're analyzing his life choices and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, what was on his list?
But hey, Jay Leno grocery shops. So George
Heck
Clooney
yeah.
probably wouldn't be caught dead in Walmart, but maybe he's in
Yeah.
Target in Spartanburg
Yeah,
down the road. Never
yeah.
know.
Yeah. Right. That's great.
So James, where are you going next? What's the plan? You was talking about you got something you might want to self-publish. So what's on the docket?
Yeah, so just kind of continuing to kind of push myself out there. I'm not the most extroverted person, even though I've done stand-up comedy and I'm fine talking in front of people, but for the most part, I tend just to sit back and
Yeah.
hang in the back. I don't mind going to the movies by myself. I don't mind going. I've gone to Disneyland by myself. I don't care. This is when I was much younger, by the way. I wouldn't go to Disneyland now by
Yeah.
myself. I would hardly go there with my kids. But it's so yeah, working on a manuscript for this crime thriller I've been working on for a couple of years now, tightening it up. It's in just got the developmental edits back, so I'll start working through that, put the final touches on it, and all likelihood get it out into the world and see kind of like you said, let the market dictate what's out there and learn for the next thing. And
Awesome.
I did I had written the follow-up to this novel
Mhm.
a couple of years ago. I was 65,000 words into it, and I was writing it in Google Docs, and Google deleted 28 of my documents, and like everything from that to a eulogy I wrote for my grandmother to copies of like birth certificates, like everything, and trying, and we went, we contacted Google, my wife and I, like we went on full investigation mode, and they were like, "Oh, it got deleted 23 days ago. Everything that gets deleted over 23 days, we can never get it back again." I'm like, "You're telling me if I was like a political figure and you needed these documents that were deleted 24 days ago, you wouldn't be able to retrieve them for like a court or like oh, we can never get them again." I'm
We
like,
got
and
him,
they kept telling
James.
me, I'm so sorry that you deleted these documents. Like, I did not delete these documents. I would not delete these documents. There was other stories I'd written in there. Like I said, eulogy for my grandmother, all kinds of stuff I had in this Google Docs. And that was the day I got off. I was like, I'm leaving Gmail. I'm out of here for like anything writing. I moved over to Proton for some stuff. Just like I was so angry and fed up with Google.
I don't blame you.
Especially because they kept telling me that I mistakenly deleted them. I'm like, I stop telling me that. I did not delete these things. I would not delete them. None of my kids have access to my computers or my Google account. Like no one's in here deleting
Right.
stuff. I was livid. So I do have like I did like a screen capture of the doc in my phone, just kind of like scrolling to see how much I've written at
Hmm.
one point. So I could slowly like scroll the video and like rewrite some of it. Um,
But
but still, yeah,
still,
that's a laborious process, and so we'll see about the sequel once I get this one done. I was also working on a another thriller kind of set in Western Idaho and Lake Tahoe
yeah.
that deals with some kind of technological stuff and kind of part technology, part cattle ranching,
Mhm.
kind of merging in out there. But some of the funnest characters I've written is that one.
That's
Having
awesome.
a blast right now, and that's about 56,000 words. But again, pause that one to get to the developmental edits
Yeah.
and start trying to crank out and, like I said, finish this project, and that way I could really focus on what's next. But that's
My
kind of where we are
next one
now.
has a scene in a fictional town called Drexel, Idaho. So that's like the key central location for my Troy Evans novel. It's a Omega Group story, but it's a Troy Evans backstory. It's how Troy changed his world of which direction he was going. Um, but so the lesson there of what James just said is back up your stuff. And I'm not saying I couldn't get burned. I have everything saved in the computer we're talking to. I have two external hard drives. One I keep in a fireproof safe that I, on a regular basis, update. I have a flash drive I keep in my wallet that has every book I've ever written. That's always with me. And I
Smart.
email myself a copy of the manuscript that I'm working on currently at least once a week, if not twice a week. So if all those somehow fail, I guess I deserve not to have that story, but I figure one of those things has got to survive. I don't back everything up all the time. So there could be versions of what I have out there that were from a month ago. So, but I wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. But yeah, I never lost a lot of stuff, but I know people that have early on, and they kind of
Yeah, it
back
was.
up regularly and don't trust the cloud, don't trust fill in the
Yeah,
blank. I used to actually take my notes off my iPhone, dump them into a Word document, and email myself and put on a hard drive. And then I finally was it was starting to get so laborious of figuring everything out that I'm like, I have to trust the notes in the cloud gets backed up, and I just have to take some faith. Um,
yeah.
if not, I'm not supposed to tell that story. So
Yeah, yeah. Now I'll write. I write in Scrivener now, but then I kind of put it into a Word doc. So I move it around to different spots all over the place. So I have, you know, I just got to remember which is the latest version when I really get to it. Like, okay, where'd that latest version go?
where'd it go?
And and yeah, so working on that, and yeah, hopefully have a novel out here. Yeah, in the next 6 months or so would be great.
Well, my last question is always the same for first time guests. So I think you agree with me. Life's like a book. We have a first page, we have a last page. Fortunately, we don't know how many pages lie between those, but as an author, you get to write your last page. What do you want that last page to say?
I have been thinking about this because I've listened to the podcast. So it's
Most of
like,
my
oh,
guests are like, "What the hell did he just
yeah,
ask?" Like,
and I'm
everyone gets
yeah,
the same
and I'm so,
question. Sorry.
yeah, and I'm still not going to sound like anywhere intelligent about it, but I've been like, so there's two. I'm a big Hunter S. Thompson fan. He's is as wild as a writer is a thing. Read quite a bit of his stuff, and then I also have a. I have The Arena by Theodore Roosevelt framed up here on one of the
Okay.
bookshelves. So I'm going to kind of combine two themes here and see if it works. Like, I didn't enter the arena pretty and well preserved, but rather broadside in a cloud of smoke, marred by dust and sweat and blood. But I dared greatly, and wow, what a ride!
I like it. I like it. Thank you. You came prepared. That's awesome. So, like I said, most people don't. So, and I always tell people that have asked that too, and it's not a gotcha moment, or whatever. I'm just always curious what people would think. And I've had the question asked to me as well, and it's just like, yeah, sometimes just want to kind of just see where people are with thought because it's something that you don't, and you shouldn't think about that very often. That's not something that you need to think about on a regular basis, but it's something that it's always good to at some point. It normally happens with loss. I've had multiple friends now in the last year that have lost one or their second parent.
Hmm.
My parents are getting in their 70s now, and so I'm solidly middle age. I'm getting up there now, which is scary. So it's kind of like, and I think for us, at least for myself, but I think for other authors as well, one of the cool things by being able to write stories is we have something to give to our kids, stuff that they can maybe read now, or maybe it's not appropriate for their age, but something that when we're gone, even though we're not here, our kids will be able to pick something up and be like, my crazy dad wrote all these stories. I don't know what in there is fiction, what actually happened, because a few of the things are real. I fictionalized
Yeah,
the version, but they'll always have a little piece of you. And so I think that, especially probably for me, and I've talked about in a lot of podcasts, my day job, which is a good day job, if if corporate America drops me tomorrow morning, that's it. I don't have a hard drive that I go, oh, this is what I worked on for 21 years working for corporate America or anything.
yeah.
The numbers I worked on are irrelevant at that point, in my opinion. With my writing, with what I do, and with my free time and stuff, that's something that will hopefully and likely endure after I'm gone. And I think it's kind of a powerful thing. You get to leave your stamp on what's to come next, whether it's your grandkids or great grandkids or random strangers that find your book in a Goodwill that Charles Barkley just donated, whatever it might be. So,
Yeah, my dad's taught me a valuable lesson with this. He worked, retired from GE Healthcare. He was like an X-ray technician for most of his career, and when he retired, he took up painting, and he painted this picture right here. I mean,
wow.
this is a glass of whiskey and a
Yeah,
fountain pen, a typewriter,
books in the
and
background and
and
stuff.
a
Wow.
pipe and books and some old books, and so he took up this painting and painting, and he's won shows and some accolades, and he sold a bunch of paintings. But I have his paintings all over my house, whether they're golf courses or some cityscapes. And this
Mm-hmm.
one he did for me after I wrote that first middle grade
Mm-hmm.
novel, and he donated to me. And he immediately took it back because he wanted to put it in an art show, and he gave me a loaner painting. But he had a stroke about 3 years ago, and it affected his right side, which is he's right-handed.
Mm-hmm.
He's been painting left-handed ever since, and
Wow.
and and they're it takes him longer to paint. But he was just showing. They were just out. They live in Arizona, but they're out over the weekend, and he
Mm-hmm.
was just showing me the painting he's working on next, and just kind of it's like, yeah, it takes a little bit longer, but he's just working on left-handed, and that's just kind of I have these from him. That it's not they're
Mm-hmm.
not. He couldn't give me anything from GE Healthcare, but we have all these paintings of his, which are awesome.
That's really cool. Um, where can everyone go to get a title of Western Tales Volume 1?
You can go to the big old Amazon, but there's also a link on my website, James Dawson Writes. That's my name, James Dawson, and then
Okay.
Writes. There's a link right there that you can pick it up. You can just go, this should take you right to the store, and you can buy it from there. But you can also have a short story there. You want to check out some of my other writing. I did just take a short story down because I started, we're talking about those ideas that just kind of percolate. I'm like, maybe I got some ideas for these
Nice.
characters and where it can kind of pick up. So,
Awesome. Well, James, thanks for coming on, folks. Go support James. Go to his website. We'll have it here at the bottom as well. And appreciate you taking some time
Eric,
to talk about this.
yeah, Eric, thank you very much, man. I appreciate the invitation.
Very welcome.